Hello, everybody. My name is Simina Tănăsescu. I'm a law professor, and what you're seeing now on the screen is not exactly my classroom, but it's very close to it. The job of a professor has become nowadays quite a difficult one. You no longer get to see the faces of the students that you're teaching. You're seeing their screens, the screens of their laptops, and you're supposed to talk to that. So when eventually you get a student looking at you, you're very happy. This experience I just had this year. On the 3rd of October, it was the first year, the first class, and during the first hour, I generally don't teach, I just give them advice, knowing that advice is, of course, given not to be followed. So I started my usual lecture with students are not supposed to believe whatever they are told. They should never take for granted what teachers tell them, particularly myself. Do check everything I'm saying. Question, try to evaluate. And I also told them that they should never take their professors as models, but they should see them as referentials. At which point, one of the students raised her hand from the computer, looked at me for one instance, of course I was not of interest there, and she started to ask, well, what did she say, what was it, model reference? And I, very pleased that I had managed to catch her attention, I said it again. Actually, your professors are not models, they are just referentials. To my great surprise, she took a separate piece of paper. Why she wouldn't write that on her laptop, I don't know it, I didn't ask. She took a separate piece of paper, and I hope that what she had written was this. But in fact, what I wanted her to put down on the paper would have been that. Because my main message was that professors are to be just landmarks, individuals with whom students are supposed to interact, but not follow identically. So you easily understand that when the organizers of this event came to me on the 3rd of October, immediately after my first class, and invited me to make a lecture here, suggesting a certain topic, I said, well, I don't know if I'm really qualified for that. But I would definitely like to talk about legal transplants. Why about legal transplants? Because I have noticed, being a lawyer, a certain tendency, which is worrying to me, but maybe it's not the same for everybody, that whenever we have a problem with our legal system, we tend to look for solutions elsewhere. Meaning, I don't know, we have a problem with the relation between our president and prime minister. Well, there is certainly a solution in another place in the world. And we have a problem with protection of the environment. Somebody else has thought about it and it's already there. Meaning, we don't have to reinvent hot water. After all, hot water already exists. And where do we look for solutions? Everywhere. I mean, immediately when a solution is spotted, not only on the media, but generally an expert, meaning a fellow lawyer, would come and tell everybody, oh, but say in Canada, or in Brazil, or in Indonesia, somebody already thought about it. So there is a legal solution there, we can take it. And this is actually what we do. We make a transplant. I'm not a medical doctor, I'm not going to talk about the transplant of brain here, but to me it sounds a little bit like that. We no longer force our brains to think. We just adopt immediately something from elsewhere. And in doing so, we look for a model. We don't look for what, in my mind, should be comparative law, that is, a referential. Why would that be of interest to you? Well, because I think that when we kind of adopt this approach, we think very honestly that we don't have to reinvent hot water. And in fact, I think we all believe that we are very contemporary, that we are very postmodern, that we are living in a globalized world, and this is how it should look like, that ideas should circulate, that good solutions should migrate, that the best standards should go all over the place. Why not do this, after all? But still, if you take a closer look to what I call legal transplant, and it's not only me, you will notice that this phenomenon actually started long before. Let me give you just 2 examples, because TED lectures are short and I should be quick. One of the best products that the French have ever produced for the exportation, forget about the cars and all the rest, is the civil code. The French civil code has been so good that it has been exported all over the place, partly thanks to the Napoleonic Wars, but us, I mean Romanians, we have just adopted it. We liked it so much that we took it over. But what is less known is that the French civil code has been such a great success that it has been copied and implemented also in the Middle East countries. In Kuwait and in Saudi Arabia, the legal regime of the women is regulated according to the rules which have been written in the French civil code. Strange, no, that we nowadays think that the women are not properly treated in those countries. In another example, the Swiss civil code. The Swiss didn't like the French code that Napoleon obliged on them, so they decided not to follow the French model, not to take the German model. They have prepared their own. And when Atatürk Kemal came in Turkey, he decided that the best model to follow would be the Swiss civil code. Well, strange then that we tend to believe that the provision in the Turkish civil code which says that the man is the head of the family and wife and children should be obedient doesn't sound like very European, right? Although both Switzerland and Turkey are outside EU, we tend to look at them like with different colors somehow. So I came to having seen this tendency in the contemporary world, I came to the conclusion that the good old saying that lawyers have, and I don't know how many other professions know it, namely that if you want to import German laws, you should also import some Germans, is probably true. What do I mean by that? Well, if you want to take rules, standards for the behavior from abroad, you should try to understand them. And we have come nowadays to such a level of laziness that not only we adopt laws from abroad, but we even tend to take the judgments, the judicial decisions. I'm not going to quote now from the case law, but there are quite a number of decisions of the Romanian courts where you find simply because a court elsewhere decided like this in a similar case, we no longer bother to torture our minds. We just follow that decision. I find this a little bit awkward. This is not to say that the legal transplant is totally impossible. No. This is not to say that the ideas should not migrate, on the contrary. But this is to say that when we talk about legal transplant, we have to consider things in an appropriate way, in the fullness of their argument. It may seem quite easy to simply believe that because legal rules are there to establish a behavior for the future, they don't have any link to the past or to the society in which they are enshrined. But in fact, the legal context is quite important, and it plays a very heavy role. As the physicians have already discovered, there is no transplantation without transformation. I don't think we can just adopt laws from abroad or case law from abroad. I think we have to think with our own mind. And while attempting maybe to copy, we should try to transform, and we should try to create, and we should reach a level where, when looking for solutions all over the world, we should see there indeed a world of opportunities, but not in order to simply transplant a rule, rather in order to think of ourselves, not necessarily as put on a pedestal and as a role model, but just think of our own solution and try to find one. Think of our problem, and try to find the solution. So I hope that I have managed to make my point come through, namely that comparative law is just a referential, while the legal transplant is purely following a model and may not be the best possible option. Coming back, this is what I wanted my student to put down on her paper. As I have announced the organizers of this event, I'm going to finish in Romanian. Coda. Atunci când am fost invitată să particip la acest eveniment, am acceptat ca să explic diferența dintre reper și model. Și acum dați-mi voie să mă întreb pe mine însămi, ce am făcut eu azi? Ieri, la ultima repetiție, aveam terminată prezentarea și ce urmează să arăt în continuare era și ieri. Anume, am luat modelul de la TED Talks, l-am transformat în TEDx și am făcut un transplant. Ieri însă nu știam încă un element, asta e partea nouă a prezentării mele, nu știu nici organizatorii. Ajungând acasă, am apucat în sfârșit să mă uit pe contractul care mi-a fost dat, pe care trebuie să-l semnez, spunând că n-am primit niciun ban ca să fiu pe scenă, că fac toate lucrurile astea de bunăvoie. Și citind contractul, am descoperit că acolo era o clauză, nici măcar scrisă cu litere mici, negru pe alb, scria așa. Prezentul contract se supune, indiferent de care e cadrul juridic referitor la alegerea dreptului aplicabil, indiferent de legile statului în care se va desfășura acțiunea, se supune legislației statului New York. N-ar putea și TED Talks să devină un simplu reper? Vă mulțumesc pentru atenție.